Hey guys, it's Shar, aka the Charm Maker, and today I'm telling you how I made this chandelier using my Glowforge. If you're new here, hi, I'm Charlotte. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and stay a while. I make content about art, my Glowforge, my small business, kind of anything that interests me at the moment. Now, like I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about the chandelier project I made. Now, this project was a labor of love. It took me forever, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. On, I guess, my Glowforge bucket list of project types I wanted to make, I've always been fascinated with lighting projects, and I've always wanted to kind of make like a lampshade or something like that with my Glowforge, and thankfully I had the opportunity to with one of my school prompts this past quarter. This project was for my design class, and we were tasked to make a feature piece for an office building and like an office space, so I decided to make a chandelier. Another prompt of this project is we had to make it up using a bunch of small pieces. So we could have used cans, we could have used bottles, we could have done anything like that. And I asked her for permission to cut out my small pieces and use my laser in order to do that. I'm so happy she said yes. So diving right into my design, I decided to do a nature feel to it. It was 100% inspired by nature, so I drew up an abstract blob leaf pattern. I love working in abstract, especially with blob-like figures, so I decided to do that because one, I love it, and two, it fit the prompt. I knew kind of the general shape of the chandelier I wanted to go for. I also sketched that out on Procreate just to have it down, and I honestly pretty much stuck to what I wanted to do initially, although I kind of messed around with maybe doing a tiered design versus just kind of the all over the place scattered strands. I decided to go with a random length of strands just to kind of fit that nature feel. I think the design really plays into nature and kind of looks like cascading vines. Now, as for the actual execution of making this project, oh my goodness, it took me forever. My Glowforge was put to work for this one, guys. I loaded up the design I made into the Glowforge file, and I spent an entire day cutting things out. I cut out a bunch of different materials. I used wood, I used acrylic, and I'm gonna link above a video to where I get my materials because I used a lot of materials, and in hindsight, I wish I'd gotten more. I used scrap materials I just had on hand. I knew I wanted green and wood tones, and I decided to really do this frosted moss acrylic, which I got from Houston Acrylic. It's one of my favorites, and I decided to use that as the primary color. So I cut out a lot of these little blob shapes. I don't know the exact number, but it was definitely way too many, and in the hundreds. There's a lot of little blobs that went into the chandelier. There actually are places where I wanted to add more blobs, but I just honestly didn't have the material to do so. But I was cutting things out in my Glowforge day and night. It felt like just getting things cut out. Thankfully, I was doing no engraving, so it went relatively quickly, but it still is a lot to cut out. Although cutting it out took a while, the piece that took the longest to do was peeling the backing and the masking off of all of these little pieces. If you used the Glowforge before and you've used their proof-grade materials or any other materials from other sources, typically they come pre-masked, and once you cut them out, you peel off that masking. I typically use Gorilla Tape to peel it off just because it's nice, it's easy, it's quick, and it's really sticky to help get it off, but I ran out of Gorilla Tape, so I started using other duct tape. And that's where the issue came in. So the other duct tape was not sticky enough, so as I was trying to peel, nothing was coming off. I actually caught it on video as I was trying to show you guys how I peel it, and it just didn't work out, which was annoying. So I had to peel every single one of these blobs by hand. At first, I was just using my nails and just really getting in there, but then my hands started to go numb, so I switched over to one of my Cricut tools to scrape them off. I got into a flow as I was peeling these off, but it was a step that took way too long, and if only I had the right materials and had budgeted my time properly to get the right tape, it would have taken me a lot less time. Although the peeling took a lot of time, the second most time-consuming thing was the assembly, the first step of assembly, because assembly happened in 2 steps. Assembly step 1 was putting together the strands. I needed all of the strands made before I could move on, so I went through and I did them in groupings of 12. So majority of the strands have 12 blobs, and some others have 8, some have 6, and even a few have 4. The strands of 12 are about 20 inches long, and the other ones get smaller as they go. I used about a million jump rings in this project. I used a million jump rings, I swear. It was easily over 1,000 because I had the chain and I had the jump rings to connect the chain to the blobs. There is a vast variety of sizes of jump rings ranging from 8mm to 12mm in this project, simply because I didn't have the quantity, and I even had to overnight order on Amazon more jump rings because I ran out of those sizes. The chain took a while to cut. It kind of hurt my hands as I was going, but I'll forever have the pliers ingrained into my palm. Even though I had all the chains completely made, I needed to make the disc that went at the top and they all hung from. Now I whipped this up just right in Glowforge's program. I went in, did some quick math with the amount of chains I had, and I even did that math a little wrong and got all those little circles in there and just had it all ready to go and kind of just planned it out on the Glowforge in their program. I was just using circles, so there's no need for me to use a fancier program, so I was able to really map them all out, have them all lined up, and get it the way I wanted it. I used walnut wood for the top of this project simply because walnut is my favorite and it fits with that darker, naturey feel. The hardest, puzzle to figure out for this project was how to hang the chains from the walnut piece at the top, from the disc. Because the disc had the holes in it, but the holes were too big for some jump rings I had and too small for others. So what I ended up doing is manually smushing in the jump rings and folding them over on the top so they're kind of just pinched down and holding them up. It definitely was not the best way to put this together, but I still think it looks great and it was effective for what I needed it to do. And that process of just taking the wooden circle and putting all the jump rings took me several hours actually, and then once I had that done, I went ahead and put all the chains on. This final step of putting all the chains on the disc was so quick, so easy. I just did them randomly because I wanted to have that kind of naturey vibe. As I put them on, I kind of switched them around, kept them in place. I just really messed around until I got the vibe I was looking for. This piece turned out to be a lot heavier than I thought it would be. It was actually about like 3 pounds. It's kind of hefty because when I would hold it up by just my hand, I could feel it pulling on me. It was very heavy, and I'm glad I have a hook mounted into a stud so I can hang it on. One of the final pieces I added in was the light. I wanted this chandelier to actually light up. I didn't want to have to hardwire it into anything since this was just a school project, and although it is gorgeous, I didn't want to have to really mess around with some electronics, and I knew in the weekend I had to finish this, I just couldn't fit that in. So I went on Amazon yet again and I ordered those little pop lights. They're powered by batteries. It works perfectly for this. It has a adhesive on it already, so I was just able to stick it right on top and it worked perfectly. If I were to do this project again, I would have a second disc on top of the initial disc to hide all of the jump ring pieces. Although I think it looks really great from my vantage point, I'm not looking down on the chandelier, but if you do go up and look down on it, you can see those folded over pieces, but I really don't think that's a detriment to it, and I think it works well still. I love how this looks in the dark. I think it's kind of fun to see how the light interacts with the piece and how all the translucent versus opaque pieces of wood and acrylic I have hanging from it interact with that light in the inside. Calculating based off of the time I spent in class and how many episodes of Glee I watched, this took me about 15 plus hours, so probably 15 to 20 hours to complete in total. This project is by far one of my favorite things I've ever made with my Glowforge. I think it looks great, although it was kind of a pain to make. All good things are kind of a pain to make, so I am so happy with how it turned out and I had a great time making it. Although it was tedious, it was 100% worth it in the end because it's a little feature piece I'll have in my room for years to come. So that's how I made this chandelier. It was a long process, but I loved it. It was so much fun to do, and I plan on making more light features just like it. The Glowforge has so many untapped abilities and so many projects you can make with it, and so I 100% want to make more in the future. I actually think one of the next projects I'm going to make is this exact chandelier on a smaller scale. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, please feel free to like and subscribe. I make a lot of weird, wacky projects like this and share a lot of the other school projects I do as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!